Hey, so today on Tuesday Tip, we wanted to talk to you about those friendly family friends. They're usually four-legged animals. Everybody always calls us and they say, hey, we've got issues. We've got dogs in our backyard and they've dug up our backyard. Or we've got dogs in the backyard and they've destroyed our plant material. Or, well, here's an even better one. They've dug up my backyard. Never happens. I understand. It's just those clients that call us. We wanted to talk about what are some easy and simple ways to be able to help out your friendly pets in the backyard to keep that in mind. And so one of the things we want to keep in mind is keep in mind the plant selection as you lay out your landscape. And if you have pets, you've got dogs and you got to think about the size. Okay, we got big dogs, we got small dogs. What is the nature of the dog, those kind of things. Keep those things in mind as you're laying out the backyard. If you got a big dog, you're going to use different plant material than if you have a small dog. You also need to keep in mind looking at the plant material that is actually in the yard. For an example, you don't want to use anything that's harmful to dogs. You may not want to use anything that has thorns on it. Keeping those things in mind as you develop and you lay out the landscape makes it a whole lot easier. You also may want to think about the mulch that you put in the flower bed. So do you use mulch? Do you use pine straw? Do you use rock? You also kind of factor in the cost of those items. Obviously rock, as we've discussed in other webinars and sessions, rock is more expensive, but it's a lot more durable. It lasts longer. You've got to keep that in mind. Keep the fact of where the foot traffic. If you've got dogs on in the neighbors' properties, I see this all the time. You have your dog and then the neighbor has their dog next door, and well, your dog is going to run up and down that fence line on your neighbors, on the side of your neighbors. So you need to be aware of that. What does that mean? That means we need to design a landscape that can tolerate that foot traffic on that particular side of the yard. That way that when that neighbor's dog is out in the yard and they're barking and causing commotion, your dog is over there barking and causing commotion, then we're not damaging plant material. A lot of people say, well, why don't we just grass the whole yard? And that's perfectly fine as well. But keep in mind that dogs like to go around in a track. And so I used to have this English bird dog many, many years ago, and his name was Lucky. And Lucky had a track of about 3 foot off the fence. And that 3 foot off the fence around my whole yard, he made a track around that whole yard. Being he was a bird dog, he loved to chase the birds. And so that rascal had about a foot-long track all the way around the property. No matter what I did, that dog would still have that track. So think about the grass selection. There's some grasses out there, your Bermudas, your zoysias. They'll take a lot more foot traffic than your centipede will. That allows that dog to be able to run around in that space, to be able to make that track around in a little bit more durable grass. Keep in mind, those are some simple things. Another thing that comes to mind with pets, and we see this quite often, especially as the temperatures are warming up and it's getting hotter, we start seeing these yellow rings in the yard. Those are urine rings, typically. That's where you let your dog out, your dog goes to the bathroom, does their business, and then they keep this big, nice little brown yellow spot. That yellow spot eventually turns into a brown spot and it kills the grass. The ammonia in the dog urine basically has caused that grass to die, and so we need to keep that in mind. Well, how do we combat that issue? Look at training your dog to go to the restroom or use the bathroom in certain designated spots on the property. If you can do that and train your dog to use those particular those particular spaces, then it makes it a whole lot easier than having those spots all in the yard. Because when you go pull up at a person's yard and you got a bunch of yellow spots in the yard, it's not very appealing and very attractive. Keep in mind, there are certain types of grasses that can withstand the urine spots a whole lot easier than other types of grass. So keep that in mind when you're selecting the grasses in that particular area, in that particular landscape. So these are just a few simple, easy things to keep in mind when you're out there and you're thinking about your friendly furry animals that are running around in the backyard. Just some things to keep in mind about how to handle that. 1, keep in mind the plant selection. 2, keep in mind the mulch selection. Keep in mind the neighboring dogs or the neighboring animals in that area. Keep in mind the size of your dog. Is it a small one? Is it a big one? Those kind of things. Selecting the right grass types for those areas. Also keeping down the areas of being able to train your dog to be able to go and use the restroom in specific areas on the property. These are just some simple things that can help you and kind of cut down on some of those issues that we run into or that we see that are pretty common from our furry friends. So hope this helps. We look forward to seeing you next time.